Good evening. It's April 7th, 2025, and this is our monthly commission meeting. And I am calling our meeting to order at 6:07 p.m. We have our meeting minutes.
I'll motion to accept the minutes.
Motion to accept.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Meeting minutes approved?
Yes.
Alrighty. And our next thing is we have committees, finances first.
Do we have any
Do we
finance?
have anyone here or no?
Or online, I guess.
Online.
I know Louise is joining us online.
What about personnel?
I do not have anything to report from the Personnel Committee, and that's not a bad thing. I'm okay with that.
I know, right? That's a good thing. I know, right? And we have community relations.
Do you have enough?
I didn't write down notes from our meeting, but we spoke about the various ventures that community relations is certainly this meeting here in the public was very high on our agenda to be able to do. There's been an ongoing discussion about the problems with the Greyhound bus station and how that, even though there are several different agencies or addresses for the complaints about their behavior, it also falls within the remit of the commission as well. And we're still trying to figure out how to proceed to try to resolve that situation.
Okay.
I'll let you give us director's report.
Thank you. Yes, we're on director's report.
Okay, so we click into it. This is not the best setup. I apologize.
It's okay. We're all adjusting here.
Director and Chair, just from minute-taking purposes, will public comment be deferred until the end of the meeting?
Yes.
That was ours.
I just want to
Yes.
make my notes correct.
Control here. All right, thank you. Yes, sorry for the weird setup. And it's kind of an abbreviated director's report today. Thankfully, I'm sure for most of the commissioners who have to deal with very long ones from time to time. But as you can see, we have two new commissioners with us. Richard Morris rejoins us. He was on the commission previously. And we have Isabel Ruiz Flint, who is also joining us. We're very happy to have them. We're up to 11 commissioners at this point, and we're looking to have a few more join us. Alrighty. Oh, so we've been having a slower influx of cases in the employment space, mostly because we haven't been getting the deferrals that we need from the EEOC. So I did reach out to them, ask them if they could kick that up a notch. We know that they're a bit overwhelmed right now and that they would benefit from having some extra hands for investigation. So we did reach out, and they have begun to start sending them our way, which is great. In terms of cases and enforcement, and I'm not sure if this is freaking out. So in terms of cases and enforcement, we have 36 open investigations as of the date of this report, which was the 3rd of April. 54 pending intakes. We did see an influx of intakes, and we're spreading those out amongst the different investigators that we have. 11 cases are awaiting a response. For anybody that is curious about how long that's taking, it's actually not so bad these days. 11 mandatory conciliations, again, staying pretty consistent. 4 cases in court and 3 on the public hearing track. The compliance review section saw a smaller agenda this month than last month with 9 cases, but 2 of those were settlements. And we should have a report out at our next commission meeting of the public hearing that we had in March. So we're just waiting for some findings to come our way and to prepare the order and have the public hearing section vote. And then once we have that, we will be able to issue the findings and the final determination.
So, next we have old business.
But we could skip through this. There's not a whole lot.
New business?
Yeah, just, oh, well, we're not on new business. We're still in the director's report. Okay, so meetings and new connections. Okay. Not a whole lot with, I'm going to try to just give a quick overview of what we did last month to avoid any further confusion. So in terms of new meetings, I was able to meet with the Center for Victims. That was an established connection by our intern Amelia, and we're going to join them for their June meeting so that we can offer them training on what the commission is and does for their entire staff, which will be great because they are the first line of support for folks that are experiencing any kind of violent crime, but primarily domestic violence. So we're glad to be making that connection. I'm also now a part of the cabinet meetings with the city of Pittsburgh, so I was able to meet the manager of neighborhood services, Paul Scott, and we're going to work together to see how we can properly share the information of the commission with their neighborhood services folks that are already out and about in the neighborhood. As of maybe next week or the week after, we'll be recording the Human Rights Podcast with the University of Florida. We're going to be the first session that they're recording. They have reached out to a few other cities such as Dallas and San Diego about their commissions potentially participating, but we want to share the word that Pittsburgh is a human rights city and that we are here to offer these services and protections, and just to keep it going and to share information across the nation, really. I was able to get them connected with the International Association of Official Human Rights Agencies, so they should be able to get in touch with a lot more of the commissions and human rights agencies that we work with. All right, so we were able to participate in the True T for the LGBTQIA+ Commission. They have a town hall earlier this month, and it was very well attended. I think it went very well. We were able to reassure folks that even though there are some issues on the federal level, that we'll be maintaining our protections here in the city of Pittsburgh for folks with their sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. That was also supported by their commission. We're hoping to work with them a little bit more in the future, particularly because we just finished up our research on our LGBTQIA+ housing survey that we did. There's a video for that, but it's good because it gives all the information of what the LGBT Commission actually is and does, and they are working to improve things inside the city structure when it comes to our LGBT community members. We did conduct our first Fair Housing for Landlords training for the year. These are the ones that we're trying to have quarterly for pretty much anyone who's interested, but we do target it specifically to landlords so that they know what their responsibilities are with the fair housing laws here in Pittsburgh. I think we had 10 landlords that were new to the program who had never been there before. So I was able to do a presentation for Access Mob earlier in the month as well. So that was a hybrid presentation on what disability rights look like here in Pittsburgh and how you can advocate for yourself in that space. They were very professional, very wonderful at really addressing every possible accommodation that you could have when you're doing a hybrid situation. So it was a very good learning experience for me because I thought that I had it down and I didn't. So keeping in mind that people who have limited hearing need to be able to read your lips and speaking slowly enough so an ASL interpreter can actually get all of the signs correct and to keep up with what you're saying, and then making sure that you're covering everything that's in a PowerPoint because you're not used to maybe covering every word that's on there. But again, for someone who's visually impaired, you want to be able to cover everything so that they know what was being delivered. The Housing Justice Summit was held on Saturday this week. They did have 150 people register, but I think it was closer to 100 that actually came. The rain was probably putting a damper on that. But Chris was participating in a panel on how to frame fair housing conversations moving forward. Our intern Amelia also participated on a panel regarding tenant protections for students. I'm very grateful for her participation in that because we are trying to reach the younger crowd, the university crowd, with the protections that we offer and letting kids know that they can advocate for themselves. Okay. So we are working with the Human Resources Department currently to improve the trainings that they're giving to new city employees. They do an anti-harassment, retaliation, and discrimination training each month, and they are also doing a domestic violence prevention training. So we were able to give them some feedback on that. They were doing a great job, just to be clear, but we were giving them some additional information that they can include, giving them some statistics from the local space so that they can share that with the people who are coming on board. But really, we just wanted them to know that they are employees of the city. They have protections as employees. They are employees of the city, so they are liable under the city policies for civil rights protections, and that they, as citizens, have rights in more than just the employment space. They have the housing, public accommodations, and themselves with the delivery of city services. Okay. Last week I was able to present information to the mayor's cabinet meeting on what the commission is and does, because this is the first time we've ever been able to sit in front of a group of such important city figures before and have them get the opportunity to ask questions. I think it shocked a lot of people, the number of cases that we see and what we process with the number of staff that we have, and the fact that we're covering all 90 neighborhoods of the city of Pittsburgh. So that's actually what brought the partnership with the neighborhood services to be, was that we had connected at that meeting.
And Rachel, just to clarify, did you say that from henceforth you will be included in meetings of the mayor's cabinet?
Yes.
And am I correct in remembering that had been a previous practice?
Yes, so the explanation for that was that because we are a commission and I am governed by you all, the commissioners, they didn't want to mix the direction of the mayor and his administration with the executive branch, with us being governed by the commissioners. Take that as you will, but I'm regardless glad to be a part of those meetings. It's already been very beneficial for us in learning when the next City in the Streets is going to be set up, hearing about, if anybody heard about the flying manhole cover the other day, we were able to hear more information on that and how the fire department was handling things like that. So it's really good to be a director who can actually get this information and disseminate it to my staff. So thankful for the ability to be included. Okay. We're still working with the solicitor to get our rules and regulations updated. We're actually moving on getting our city code updated as well, filling in any blanks that might be there. There's some different sections that it'll cover the full breadth of what the protections are, like the protected statuses, but it doesn't always list all of them. So we're gonna go through and make sure that everything is cleared up, especially with things being the way that they are right now. We don't want any holes in our city code when we could be protecting people with clear language. And likewise with the rules and regulations. Motions Commissioner Webster is actually going to join our next meeting on that. He's very interested in participating in that. So we did submit the city services, the civil rights portion of the city code, those changes. We got approval, we submitted them to city council, and we're currently waiting on some kind of feedback or approval from the law department. We wanted to be transparent with them and let them know, hey, these protections are being updated, and essentially all we're doing is adding all the protected statuses that should be listed in that section. It just had not been updated since 1996, so we wanted to make sure everything that had been added since then got added to the city code and was very explicit. So we were just waiting for feedback from them, and then we should have that presented at a council meeting, and we'll have a chance to speak to that and give some additional information. Okay.
Rachel, I have one question. question?
Yes.
Is this the ballot question that would be on the primary ballot? The inclusion of these extra protections?
No.
Oh, that's not.
No, the ballot question was about how the city does business and whether we should be considering things like national origin when we're creating these contracts. And yeah, that was a messy one. They actually didn't consult us on that one, but I think it was handled fairly well by the council members.
We have a question down here by Jamie.
Yes.
This can be referred for later on. It has to be researched. I don't know what the status of transgender youth is under the city code. I do know that UPMC has suspended certain transgender care for youth, and I don't know if that falls within the purview of the Commission for people being denied access, or whether that's a purely UPMC issue. Is it possible to assign that to a staff member to research that a little bit?
We have had some inquiries that did come up both at the Access Mob presentation and the LGBTQIA+ town hall. So we are looking into addressing it from a public accommodations perspective where we can. If it's in response to the executive order where they are completely dissolving a department, that's less something that we can participate in terms of law enforcement. If individual people are being refused service, that is something that we could take as a public accommodations complaint.
Thank you.
Just the last couple of things here. We do finally have the full and complete report for our LGBTQIA+ housing research. I have to get that disseminated to all the commissioners, and then we're going to begin planning our outreach events around that to give the results of it and engage the public a little bit more thoroughly. And then we should also have our annual report. I was actually working on finishing this up today, so hoping to have this done for the next commission meeting so that we can start disseminating that in the community as well. It really helps, I think, to be able to show the statistics from the prior year and what kind of things the commission is getting involved in so that they will potentially invite us to additional things and see once they see what it is that we're involved in. I think that is probably it for the report. Oh gosh. So with upcoming events, I'll just leave this for the commissioners to take a look at, but Fair Housing Month is always very full of different kinds of events. We will have tabling at the Allegheny County Anchored Reentry Summit. We just participated in the Housing Justice Summit. Tomorrow is the Housing Equality Summit for the State Commission on Human Relations. And what's that?
In the morning, right?
It's 8 to 3.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
registered. I'll be there.
Yeah, 8 to 3 tomorrow is the State Commission's conference. And then we're going to be a part of the Beyond the Bridge film screening on April 29th. That's going to be a film screening about how to essentially end homelessness and the suggestions that they have for the community to get involved in that. We're hoping to use that as a kind of platform to launch off of with our housing status protections that we're looking to add. Okay, I'm going to leave it back to you all.
Thank you very much for that, Rachel. And I guess do we have any old business? No? I don't know. Well,
This is like years old.
okay. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Yes, these are years old. Probably 3-4 years ago, we submitted to the city a report on furthering fair housing. Yes, which is what we were required to do. And I don't know if we've gotten an adequate response to that, but as we move forward, it's something we need to pull up and sit down and go through because it was very comprehensive. And one of the things that came out of that report was that the health department would have a housing committee, which has occurred. So there are probably other things in that document that we should take a look at this particular time and see if we should either push a new report forward or make some adjustments to it.
All right, I like that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And our planning that we have coming up, I think that's definitely something we should consider as we're moving forward with the
especially with this new, goal, the new plan they just put out, I think that would fit right in there. So, I thank you for that. Anything else? Any new business? All right, no, don't be sorry, no, come on, no.
The issue of student housing and discrimination in student housing kind of goes and comes. And I think that we're at the point where we need to talk to the university community about us providing information to the students in terms of what their rights are in terms of fair housing and discrimination. Even from the standpoint of how to use the magistrate system to their advantage and understanding what the basic rules of the road are in terms of tenant eviction and those kinds of things. So I think that maybe we want to look at a pamphlet or something to put out.
I like that.
So part of the League of Women Voters, which I do with the greater Pittsburgh area, is we created a magistrate quick reference. So we targeted it at high school students, like how do you end up in front of a magistrate and why should you vote for them? But we can also include one for older students who would involve with housing issues. So I'll bring that back to them as well.
Yeah, maybe when they're
We can share resources.
Put that in your orientation package as well.
I know that our staff has presented occasionally at the universities over the, like in the relatively recent past, but I think thinking about how we can expand that information beyond the group of students who might attend an in-person thing to be something that is shared more broadly across students. And I mean, this reminds me of the idea that we'd spoken about at one point around is it possible to work with the public schools to share with high school students information about fair employment practices? And I think it's a similar kind of question, right? What are the best ways to share information really broadly with all the people in a certain demographic that we hope to reach? So, yeah.
To provide updates also on that, Commissioner Morris, our staff has met with 2 local universities to change their reasonable accommodations policies, so they know from that end. There was training provided or scheduled to be provided for those housing providers too. The Pittsburgh Gifted Center, which reaches out, they top out at 8th grade, but there is interest to have our commission come and present to them as well, especially as they enter the job market. So not only housing, but as they enter the job market. So student housing is on the radar, and it is being touched, but I'm very excited this is one of my favorite things. So I'm excited to help continue that kind of work. So thank you.
To your point, there are days in several of the high schools where they have in-person get your work permit days. So that would be a perfect chance for us to do something in tandem so that the students will know as they're entering the workforce that they have rights.
During my last stand of employment, I worked a lot with rental assistance and eviction prevention. And there is a coalition of those folks that we should get in front of because they're the ones who are out there fighting every day to keep people in their spots. And I think that just a well-placed word to maybe Natalie and the Action Housing folks to have us do a presentation because the system is much wider than it was before. It covers mediation, it covers housing authorities, and that's a good opportunity to get those people at the table to say, this is what the law is in the city of Pittsburgh, and you should be aware of it in terms of how you deal with people that you're seeking to evict from your units.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Do you have a question or, yeah?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Starting in September, we're going to have a financial literacy class in all schools, and I think that's a good way to start, to try to talk to the governor, to try to add stuff to it as to the items that you're talking about.
sorry. What was the last part? I didn't.
To talk to the state government.
Oh,
To
absolutely.
broaden what they're, I mean, this is already going to happen, and then we're trying to get permission to get in, and we can just piggyback on that, and let's follow in, and let's add whatever programs we want to add.
Wonderful, yes. So let's make sure that we get that information, because I think you're right. I think collaborating with different groups and just, hey, we're there, let's get this information in. So perfect idea, thank you.
Was there a question over here?
Did you say eliminate homelessness?
That's our goal. We need to, don't you think?
Is that realistic, and is there a time frame that you have for it?
We don't know what the time frame is, but yes, it is realistic.
The question of homelessness is always going to be a struggle because it covers so many aspects. But I think that the work that we do is important because we need to be part of that process. And what we provide are the protections that people need so that they don't get used and abused in the process. So we may not be the group that, leads them forward, but we certainly have capacity to help with the process, and that we want to use it for that purpose.
And I think too, our work as a civil rights agency is closely connected to the idea of human rights. And so if we think of housing as a human right, while at the moment that doesn't have a lot of legal standing for us, I think it certainly is an ideal that we can aspire to, and one that's quite closely linked to our purpose as a commission.
Because we're dealing with different groups of people. You're probably referring to people that's struggling to survive, to try to lower the rate of homelessness, but we also have the drug dealers out there and the people that want to hang out in the street, and it's going to be more difficult if we try to eliminate homelessness among that group of people.
Yeah, it definitely, I think like Richard said, homelessness has a lot of different shapes and sizes, and so requires an approach that takes many different avenues towards finding those solutions at once. There's no single piece of the puzzle that's going to apply across all the dimensions of this problem. But I think with groups like this commission doing the pieces that we can do, and then other community partners also filling in those pieces in coordination with one another, I think we can certainly make progress.
And I guess I can add that the legislation for protections that we're working on right now about housing status, that would be, if you have a past history of homelessness, then you cannot be denied housing just on that basis alone. So you'd have to meet the other criteria, to be able to obtain that housing. So payment and other, you would have to have payment, you would have to have things like that in order to qualify for that protection. So if you are able to get housing, based off of, if you have everything that you need to obtain the housing, and you have a gap in your housing history, a landlord can't just say, well, I don't know if this is a good investment on my part. And it's something that we hear happens an awful lot with the community groups that we work with. I've talked to community agencies, folks who help people find placement. They've said that in a lot of instances, they have felt compelled to hide the fact that someone has homelessness somewhere in their history when they're talking to landlords and to groups that do placement. I know that we work with document, we work in housing, in civil rights and housing, and every day we have documents across our desk about lease forms, about documents that have signatures on them. And I'm not going to say any names, but increasingly we are seeing larger landlords in this area ask for someone's housing history, and it's couched in the form of like references, but if you have any gaps in it, that can be something that would be a red flag that would cause your application to get pulled.
So why do they need the documentation on the people that are homeless or were homeless? Because we're dealing with two different people that's struggling and just not making it, and the people that don't care and just want to hang out and get intoxicated and things like that. They're also classified as homelessness.
Well, I think that there aren't just two groups, right? Because, we have folks who are out on the streets who are kind of couch surfing, they're sort of, so we have folks who are out on the street, we have people who are couch surfing, we have people who are squatting, we have people who, so we have lots of people in a lot of different situations is what I'm trying to say, right? And so even amongst those folks who, they do have substance problems, and those substance problems are very apparent. You can see even with a lot of groups like that, and folks who have mental health problems as well. Having to live in a tent for 2 months on a sidewalk is going to exacerbate whatever existing issues you have. And so it might not necessarily be the case that those issues are the reason that you're out on the street, but it's very apparent when you're talking to those folks that they're having problems with substance abuse, with mental health. And so in a situation like that, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't have any sympathy for folks who had those problems before they got out on the street, but in a situation like that, being able to get them into a place where they're safe, they're secure, and there's a daily regimen for them to follow and rules can help them get off of those substance abuse issues. And then in addition to that, can help them find employment and help them get back into the system. It's I think especially nowadays, after the pandemic, you can see that a lot of folks are coming around to the realization that it's very easy to fall off the ladder. Because we had an awful lot of folks who, even with eviction protections in place, got kicked out during COVID because they lost their job and then they're out on the streets. So that'd just be my kind of response to that. But I mean, concerns are warranted. We can't approach this all as being the same problem because it's a problem that has lots of different causes. But yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Chris.
I've got a cute dog up there.
So is there any more questions?
I think just the other piece of new business is the SOFI.
It's what?
Is the statement of financial interest, just making sure everybody saw those emails.
Yes.
Yes.
And we are, just in case anyone didn't know, we fall under elected officials, even, right? I was like, wait, which one are we? So make sure you fill those out.
Yeah, those papers, yeah. But also the reference to gentleman right here, Ed Gainey with the mayor's office, they just did a rollout plan for what his goals and things are. So you might want to, if you have access, and I know at the library, they have access to look up on the mayor's, the website for the city and look at his rollout plan that he has for helping the people who do want to be housed who are homeless. Because we do understand that there's two different people when it comes to housing, the ones who want to be housed and the ones who aren't. So we do understand that, and I know he does because that's part of his plan.
In terms of housing, I sell real estate, and in the city of Philadelphia, they have about 40,000 homes that are owned by the city. And in Pittsburgh, it's about 24,000. I have suggested to elected officials when I get the time to talk to them. I haven't talked to the mayor in a couple of years. I haven't been able to tell him, but I did talk to the county executive about this issue. We have houses that are sitting there. Some are ready to go. Some need minor repairs, major. Some need to be torn down, and they're vacant lots. And we have homeless people who are staying in a tent. And I don't know why we are not using the city's inventory of homes that they have taken in because of non-payment of taxes. The homes are there. The city sells, we found maybe a couple hundred homes a year. It'd probably take 1,000 years to clear out the inventory. And it takes about 2 years to actually start the process and to finish it. And I mean, all that to me in selling real estate is that's unacceptable. And we can do better. But I wish we would look at the inventory of homes the city of Pittsburgh has taken in for non-payment of taxes.
Yeah.
They are there. Now, I'll give you a story about 5-6 years ago. One of the managers down there, he wanted to buy a particular house. It made it to the Post-Gazette, and he did this, and he got this house, very great house, small amount of money. Now, I'm not saying we should be doing that, but we have these homes, they're sitting, and we should use them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know there's like some land bank stuff that's going on as well, so there's a whole different things. But for the purposes of our commission, we just want to make sure that people are not being discriminated against when they do go for housing. And so for our commission, that's within the limits of our control, to be able to help individuals make sure that they are not being discriminated against on all of those protected classes that we're talking about. Right, so I think Director Shepherd has a presentation for us now, and I'm sure you have handouts.
I do, this is what I was thinking of. So I do have a number of different things that I can reference, and then you all can take home with you today. But I think it'll take a mic. Sorry, y'all. I do have a number of things I can send out after this presentation, and that we have hard copies for anyone who's here in the room that wants to take them with them. But we wanted to cover today essentially just what the commission is, what it is that we do, and what kind of protections we have here in the city of Pittsburgh, while on the federal level things are just being rolled back, whether or not that's actually legal or not. And we want to reassure folks that these protections are going to stay here in Pittsburgh, and that the administration is focused on keeping them here, and that we as a commission are working on adding additional protections depending on what is going on in the community landscape. Okay, so this is the commission's mission statement, and it basically just says everything that we were just talking about up here with our commissioners, is that we are the civil rights enforcement agency for the city of Pittsburgh. We are here to investigate instances of discrimination. That is primarily what our staff do. We are very focused on enforcement, because we're a commission that can actually enforce the laws, where a lot of commissions can only make recommendations, so we don't take that for granted. And we go out and do education and outreach, so doing things like we're doing here today, where we want to come out and talk to you all face-to-face or hybrid, because that works for people on a Monday evening, so that they know what their protections are, because I can tell you, until I joined the commission, I didn't know about these things. And most of the people that I know, once they do find out about the commission, they are just as equally surprised that these protections exist. So we work with the city code, that is our guiding document, but we also enforce the federal anti-discrimination laws as well. We like to highlight that the commission, we refer to ourselves as PGHCHR because PHRC is the state commission. They do what we do, but on a grander scale for the entire state. We're a safe space, so we want people to feel comfortable when they come to us. They should be aware that they can get interpretation and translation at no cost because we are a government agency, and even though English is now the official language of the United States and the language interpretation is no longer officially required, the city is still doing that. So we don't ask about any kind of documentation regarding citizenship or immigration status. We are not, if it's not a part of your complaint, because we do offer protections for citizenship and immigration status, we're not going to ask. And if we do get it, we're not giving it to anybody. We also like to highlight, you don't need an attorney to file with us. So if you need to file a discrimination complaint, you can come to us as an individual. You don't need any special expertise. We will go through everything with you. We have staff that are trained to be trauma informed and to take these interviews on an individualized basis, and we take them all very seriously. We will meet you virtually or in person. After COVID, we are doing a lot of virtual meetings. That tends to help people out, because if you're on the job and you are an hourly worker and you can only get a 15-minute break, we can meet with you on that 15-minute break and make sure that we're getting this done timely. We respect your pronouns. It's a simple thing. If you tell us what your preferred name is, if you tell us what your preferred pronouns are, we're going to respect that. We will use that. We keep that in our case management system so that our staff know, even if they answer the phone for you, what your pronouns are going to be. And finally, our services are completely free. This is a City of Pittsburgh agency. We are a part of the city government, and we don't charge for any of the things that we do, including our mediation services. In terms of who works for the commission, we do have 15 volunteer commissioners. These folks you see before you today are not getting paid to be here. They are here on their own volition. They are amazing people. They show up and they do the work. And they are appointed by the mayor, confirmed by city council, may or may not be interviewed by city council, and sometimes you find out after the fact that you've been appointed, but they serve 4-year terms or until they resign or are replaced. And we have a bifurcated board. It is very important that we keep our board numbers up because half of the commission does compliance review, where every month they'll see a list of cases, they'll see summaries from those cases, and they will make determinations on those cases. So if we are doing all the work on the staff end to do investigations, the commissioners have to affirm those decisions. If they don't, we cannot move cases forward. We cannot enforce things, and it would be very bad. So we really love our commissioners. The other half of our commission is the public hearing section. So say a case does go through investigation and we get a probable cause finding. We found enough evidence to say that discrimination occurred. We're going to take that to a mandatory conciliation. We try to make folks sit down and iron out their differences, see if we can find an amicable way to move forward with a settlement. And if not, we take it to a public hearing. So public hearing section will be the ones to hear that case fresh. There's a panel that will sit before you and accept your testimony, the evidence. We have to subpoena witnesses and accept motions. It is very formal. It gets very formal very fast. But our commissioners are there for that. We do have a solicitor that supports them with that, and they just do so much more. Our commissioners are on committees. We have our community relations committee that you heard a little bit about earlier. They do our outreach events, public meetings, the budget process. They are very, very involved. If you are a City of Pittsburgh resident and interested in becoming a commissioner, we have a fact sheet for that because we want you to know exactly what it is you're signing up for. We are always looking for commissioners, so please join us.
And we're inviting his question.
Yes.
Just a comment that it may not be known that in the compliance section, we, as a group, review between 85 and 160 pages of material every month, so that we are prepared to ask intelligent questions, that we're not simply rubber stamping a finding that's been proposed, and that we take this research part on that we do very seriously, and it just does not take 5 minutes, I'll tell you that.
No, thank you for clarifying, because it is very important, and that's exactly what we do the fact sheet for, because people should know what they're getting into. This is not a meeting a month. This is not something fun to put on your resume. I need you to work if you're on the commission, and I say that nicely because you're my boss. So thank you for taking that with a grain of salt. So we have 8 full-time staff members on the commission. We have interns, fellows, we get law clerks from time to time. So we're fully staffed at 8 right now. It's been 6 months. I'm going to find some wood to knock on, because it's been long enough now that we could possibly see something happen. But that's our hierarchy there on the screen. So commissioners, top down, commissioners, myself as the executive director, and then all of the other staff. Our deputy director, Chris Solt, who was addressing the housing status, he is our deputy director, and he does all of the case supervision for when things are actually in investigation. We have 4 investigators. Rita is our most senior investigator. She is here in the audience with us, and we do have a few more online. Thank you for joining us. Hi, I saw you, Jeff. I don't know if I saw anybody else. I'm sorry if I can't call you out. But everybody is very dedicated, very knowledgeable, and passionate. Everybody on our staff wants to be on our staff. They want to do this work. We also have 2 solicitors. We have contracts with them because we can't use the city law department because we're independent. We can take cases against the city. We can take employment cases for their employees, and we can take civil rights cases. So that is any city employee or representative acting as an employee or representative who discriminates against a member of the public. We also have our housing solicitor, who is more involved with our housing cases after we find probable cause. Mentioned we do the outreach and education. We want to give information up front so that people don't feel blindsided. They should know what is in the code, what our rules and regulations require, and what they're supposed to do if they're an employer, a public service, a member of the city staff. You know, we want people to know. We don't want them to feel like they were being attacked by the commission when we come at them with a complaint. Although that's usually how it starts, and that's how we can make positive change. So legislation is another piece of what we can do that is really powerful. We are a commission that can enact legislation on our own. We can add protections to the city code. That is not something that every commission has or can do. Again, we don't take that for granted. I'm going to talk about our local protections here in a little bit, because that's really what we want people to know, is what is here for you in the city of Pittsburgh. What do you have at your disposal here that you wouldn't have if you stepped out of the city? And we're actually authorized to review legislation of other city departments as well, but we're starting to get a little bit closer to those departments and find ways to collaborate instead of having it be more adversarial.
Right, we can only enforce laws that exist. Like, let's just, so.
Yes, so we can enforce the laws, but they have to exist. We do research. I mentioned our LGBTQIA+ housing research that we did. We have had sexual orientation as a protection since 1990, gender identity and expression since 2014, but we don't see very many complaints on those bases. Why? We wanted to know why. So we did some housing research, did a survey, did a couple of public events. We'll have more about that coming out. Like I said, we're going to be planning some events here that are going to be for the public so that they can learn more about what we found. But there's a hierarchy of needs. That's really what it comes down to. There's a hierarchy of needs. Housing is sparse, and people don't want to risk their housing to take a stand because it's just not worth it to them when your home is on the line. Enforcement. This is the bread and butter of the commission. This is exactly what we exist for. If there is no enforcement mechanism, then who's enforcing the law? People are just, no cop, no stop. People are going to do what they want if there's no one there to tell them it's wrong and to hold them accountable. We investigate those complaints of discrimination. We can create our own commission-initiated complaints. If we have information brought to us by outside resources that they know something is going on and maybe people are too afraid to go forward, or they lost witnesses already, but they know it's a consistent systemic practice, we can hold those folks accountable with a commission-initiated complaint. We can hold public hearings. I mentioned it in the terms of cases, where we would have a case public hearing where it's an individual versus usually some kind of organization, and we have to have this big public hearing. We can also have topic-specific public hearings. The last time we did that was 2017. We did religious and ethnic intimidation, and it was a very big day, the biggest event that I had planned at that point, and we had a lot of folks come forward to tell us about what they are experiencing. And when we have that, we can move forward with things like the legislation, with research, with commission-initiated complaints. If you all don't tell us what's happening, then we can't do anything about it. So we always say, if you see something, say something. We can issue subpoenas. That is another powerful part of our enforcement. We can issue subpoenas for documentation. We can subpoena for testimony. If you are called to attend one of our public hearings and you get a subpoena, please show up. I don't want to have to send a constable. We also monitor and enforce settlement agreements. This is a very important piece because then we can make sure that people are being held accountable, right? Like we have this settlement agreement. It's not just, okay, sign on the dotted line and then we're going to forget about it. It's not just about paying a check. It's about public interest relief. How are we making sure that this employer that did some kind of discriminatory thing doesn't do that discriminatory thing again? We offer free training with the commission. That is usually a part of our settlement agreements. I'd say like 9 times out of 10. We do policy review. There are so many ways that we can work with an employer or a housing provider or a public service to make sure that they know what they're supposed to be doing. Again, we're not trying to hide the ball and surprise people. We're not trying to punish anybody. We just want everyone to know what they're supposed to do and do it right. Yes?
And now for one other comment. I will say that, again, working in the compliance section, there are people who have complaints lodged against them that would prefer to ignore them or not respond to investigators. The really important thing about this commission, it has the ability to compel a response or have a judgment enforced in some capacity. So it is in the interest of the respondent to work with the commission to find a way forward, or sometimes even find that there wasn't enough of a case to move forward. But if the respondents simply ignore it because it's inconvenient, or it's like they consider it minor, the commission has a way of making it important to them.
Yes, thank you. That is the enforcement piece of what we do. We can take that stuff to court. We've had public hearings where we've had orders for really small amounts of money, honestly, for what they've done, and they refuse to cooperate. So we end up taking it to court, getting a judgment, and then he asked us, can I make installment payments? Because no one wants to have their truck taken because they didn't pay a settlement that they should have paid.
And to that point too, and sometimes it's not just monetary, as Rachel said, like the education piece, preventing it from happening in the future, is a really key piece of that settlement too. Did you have a question in the back? Oh, okay. Great. Did you answer it? Okay.
You enforce the settlement, so you go to court?
We can take things to court, yes. Yeah, we have our solicitors. They go to court for us to enforce different things. If people are in violation of a settlement agreement, this is why we really encourage people to settle before the commission. We want to be party to that. I want to be able to sign on my dotted line so that I can help you as a complainant to get that relief that you signed up for. Because if I don't, and you have an outside settlement, I can't do anything about that. So we do have that happen, where parties will go behind the commission's back, essentially, during an investigation and work something out, and then they can withdraw from our process, which is fine by me, but I'd rather that people have some kind of enforcement mechanism for that settlement agreement as well, because to take that yourself to court is quite costly.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, it's kind of embedded in the comments that you're making, obviously the commission assumes a neutral posture, right? We don't enter any of these cases assuming that discrimination has taken place. And in fact, if someone has been accused unjustly of discriminating, it's important that we uncover that and that we, side on the behalf of the respondent. And in the midst of that, I think the commission does this incredible service to the community in providing an avenue for people who have experienced discrimination, who are often people who face discrimination in lots of different areas of their life. And this is one place where our city has established these protections, and where the city is able to use its resources to make sure that people who are vulnerable, who have experienced this kind of discrimination, can have a mechanism to have things, to be made whole in that. And I think like it's just a kind of a beautiful thing that the city has done, is to prioritize placing that value on behalf of people who've experienced discrimination.
Yeah, a lot of times there'll be efforts to eliminate liability. We found out that an employee is using slurs, so we let them go. But how does that make the person who experienced the slurs whole? What does that do for them? So it really is a powerful thing that we have to try and make a person whole after they've experienced what they have.
And one of the things on compliance review section is that this is the first time we're seeing these cases when they come in front of us, many of them. Sometimes we have something that's popped back up after post-consideration, but being able to ask those questions of the investigators and hold them accountable right there is, they have the answers. So it's not, we will question sometimes and say, well, how did you arrive at this? And did you look at this? And so it's a really intense process, but a very thorough process, and one that the people who have complaints that they have filed and people who've had complaints filed against them, they deserve to have that kind of thorough investigation.
Yeah, just to be, here.
No, that's okay. So you keep a record of the incidents that you saw or prevent? Because this discrimination, we may help reduce it, but it's not going to go away until maybe when Jesus returns and spread peace throughout the world. So we're going to have to deal with that discrimination.
Yeah, that's a good point. We do see repeat offenders. So we do have some large employers and housing providers here in the city of Pittsburgh, and they do repeat offenses. What we have at our disposal in the city code, and I don't think I have a slide for it, so I'll just say it, but we have the ability if there's a repeat offense. So say a housing provider has, discriminated on the basis of disability, and we know that they've done that. We've called probable cause for it. And then they come back maybe a month later and somebody else is complaining about the same thing after we already resolved it. Now we can assess civil penalties, and it just goes up and up and up depending on how many instances there are. So the first two instances is $10,000. Beyond that, it goes up to $25,000. Beyond that, it goes up to $50,000. So we do have escalating penalties. Again, we're not here to punish anybody, but if you're doing it on purpose, you bet we will, because that's what we're here for.
Who enforces the payments?
We do. We do. So if they have to pay what they were obligated to pay with a settlement to begin with, and they didn't do that, or maybe they did that and then they committed the same offense again, we would take action against them in court to enforce that and to assess those civil penalties. And that's what our solicitors are for. Yes.
And when a case has reached a settlement, at least the ones that I've read, the monetary amount is there and agreed upon in the settlement, and we all see it, and it's signed off by all the participants. So it's not a vague thing that there needs to be some compensation. It's an actual figure that has been agreed to because both parties have to sign the final document.
There's a historical housing case that we settled a number of years ago because of a whistleblower who came to us that was actually on the housing provider's staff, and they were tired of being told to discriminate against people. There was a coding system for the applications for anyone who sounded black is what they would have to mark, something on the corner of their paper. And so they came to us, and they were a whistleblower, and that ended up being close to a $500,000 settlement for all of the people that were harmed. because of that practice. And they actually went bankrupt as a result. So if you want to talk about really sticking it to them, that happens, but we don't see systemic things like that right now. At least we haven't been recently. We don't have a dedicated staff person to do more systemic cases. I would love to add somebody so that we could do that, because we know these things are happening. We just can't quite get ahead of it. But we're here for it. And if we see a number of individual complaints, that's when we could start taking the commission initiated and take it further.
Have you seen a reduction?
A reduction in a particular kind of discrimination or complaints or?
The discrimination,
It evolves. It's evolving, and that's why we're here, and that's why it's so powerful that we have the legislative power that we do, because adding protections keeps it moving. So we just added last year medical marijuana patient protections for people who are legally using in the state of Pennsylvania their medical marijuana. They have a qualifying disability, they're following all the rules, but maybe they're still testing positive for employment drug testing, and they can't get a job. Well, we wanted to offer them the protection and that equal opportunity that everyone else gets. If you're, taking an anti-anxiety medication, no one is questioning your ability to do a job. But for some reason, if you are a medical marijuana card holder, that has been disputed as whether you're reliable or not. And so they are just making a prejudicial decision, and that's what we wanted to try to eliminate. Now, there are a lot of caveats with the medical marijuana. I do have protection information in my handy box over here. Clearly, I didn't have it together enough to get a folder, but I do have this fact sheet for medical marijuana patients who are the employees, right? We want the employees to know what can you do, what can't you do, what exemptions exist, can they take disciplinary action against you? Sorry. Yeah, so we have that guidance. We also have a guidance sheet for employers, because again, we want to give them that information up front. We're not trying to hide the ball and surprise them with complaints. We want them to know what they're doing. And if we can get them on board and reviewing policies with us and adding these kinds of things to their internal policies, we can make sure that we're getting ahead of it, and then maybe individuals don't have to bring us complaints. So that's the goal.
And I think the other sort of side of the coin of are you seeing a decrease in discrimination? Part of it is, we know that most discrimination is not reported. Right. Most discrimination, people either are afraid to come forward, they don't know that they have these protections and rights. The case is nuanced enough that they're not sure they can prove that they were discriminated against, and so we find the more work we do raising community visibility, the more time we spend out in the community letting people know about the rights they have, letting people know about the process of filing a case with the commission, letting people know that the commission exists, because honestly, I'd been living in Pittsburgh a long time by the time I was appointed to this commission, and when I got the call saying I had been appointed to this commission, I did not know what this commission was or what it did. So I think that the more we tell that story, we typically see an increase in cases after we do specific targeted outreach to different populations, not because there's more discrimination all of a sudden, but because those people now know that they have some recourse when discrimination happens.
And that leads perfectly to this slide.
Indeed. So what is required to actually file a discrimination complaint with the commission? We have specific areas that can be investigated with the city code. So we have the employment, housing, public accommodations, which is like a convenience store, an amusement park, like anything that you can think of that is a public service that you are spending money at. And the civil rights protections, which covers the city staff, the representatives of the city of Pittsburgh, and it does include the Pittsburgh Police. So those are the areas we cover. We do not cover education at this time. I am looking into it though, because if we had greater capacity on the staff, we would absolutely be able to take that on. But right now, there's no way. The State Commission on Human Relations does do the education complaints.
Chris has a question.
If you are a teacher with a public education entity, we can take that. It's the students that we can't take.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. If you live or work.
Yes. So again, where can the harm have occurred? It has to be within the city of Pittsburgh limits. Please don't think it just because it's a Pittsburgh, PA address that it's going to be covered. We use the real estate portal for the Allegheny County because wherever you're paying your taxes, that's where your municipality is. So we've got that, anything within the city of Pittsburgh limits. We can take employment complaints as intake only if you are geographically outside of our space. And then we can send them to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and they will get you set up for investigation. Our time frame for filing is longer than the EEOC, than HUD, than the State Commission, pretty much everyone else that you can file with in this space. You have 365 days from the last known date of harm to file with us. So if something is continuing and it's been going on for 5 years, you can complain based on that most recent date and we can cover all the way back. And then who can file? We talked about this. Most of our stuff is individualized complaints. It's just individual people who are experiencing something and then coming and filing on their own behalf. The commission does its own commission-initiated complaints. And then advocacy organizations whose mission is to combat discrimination, they can also file. So we work with an organization called the Fair Housing Partnership. Their entire mission is to advocate to eliminate discrimination. And so if they do some testing because they get wind that a particular housing provider is doing something nasty during the tenant evaluation process and they can verify it with their testing data, they'll bring that to us and file a complaint. The direct evidence settles pretty quick. These are all the laws the commission enforces. As we mentioned, the city code is kind of our guiding light. That's the most close to home, has the most specific protections, but we do everything from the Civil Rights Act to the ADA to the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, Pregnant Worker Fairness Act, and the Fair Housing Act. As you can see, the commission, which was established in 1955, is older than all of these laws. Pittsburgh has been on it. These are the protected classes in Pittsburgh. These are statuses that every person has. Everyone's got an age, everyone's got a color, everyone has a gender or a sex or a race. Like, we all fit some kind of protected status. These are not just for the minorities. Anything that's in bold is covered on the federal level. So we've got age over 40, this is employment only, national origin, color, disability, familial status, which is housing only, and I'll get into more specifics on that, race, religion, and sex. Everything else, ancestry, place of birth, citizenship status, preferred language, all of these things are covered by the Pittsburgh City Code. I am particularly proud of our status as a survivor of domestic violence protections because we have that in both employment and housing, and it really can, it's a very strong piece of code that not a lot of people know about. So we've been trying to get out there and do more outreach recently, particularly on that protection, because we want people to know there is some kind of direct recourse for when you're in a situation like this.
There's a hand over there.
Yes.
Is there a decrease in the domestic violence?
No, so there's not a decrease in domestic violence because of this. What we can do as a part of our practice is we have provisions for housing so that a landlord would have to change the locks to keep out someone who's an aggressor if you can provide the right documentation. They can also let you out of a lease without assessing additional fees. So we do have those protections. And then in employment, we're looking for things like reasonable accommodations. We want an employer to understand you're an employee, you're in a situation, it might be very upsetting, it might be very traumatic, you may need some kind of accommodation to do your job. Whether that's a change in your shift that you're working, a location of where your desk is so that you're not up at the front where the front door is, so that if that person comes in, they're not going to see you immediately. Maybe changing your phone number or your email. So these are all the kind of things that we can do. Again, with every discrimination complaint, there's a hierarchy of needs. If the folks that are experiencing domestic violence don't come to us, and we don't see very many, it's because they're taking care of more important things first, right? Like they're securing housing, they're fleeing, they're prioritizing their well-being before they come after, like, okay, the landlord charged me fees for breaking my lease early. Maybe they'll come to us a couple months later. This is why our time frame for filing is so important, because it gives them that full year after they have fled to address that discrimination. And that's the complaint process. I will give you all one of these as well, but this has the complaint process, all of the protected statuses on it. That's the public hearing track. It is complicated. If you come to us, I promise you I will explain it to you, but it is a full rehash of the case. We do an investigation. Our investigators are amazing. They cover all kinds of things. Even still, if we can't get them to settle at the end of a probable cause finding, we're gonna have to take it to a public hearing and have it all over again. So this is what that process looks like. We try to be as transparent as possible for the people that are coming to us so that they feel comfortable. Okay, specific issues with the housing. There's a ton of different things. Any treatment that is different based on your protected status is essentially what's going to get you to a point of filing a complaint. The failure delays to make repair, harassment, using different qualification criteria, all of these things are illegal discrimination when they're based on a protected status and not on some kind of legitimate business reason. Oh, so that was the rental. Sorry, I forgot that I had the 2 slides for housing. So that was rental, which is what we primarily see in terms of complaints because the rental is so prominent here in Pittsburgh. We also have the protections for lending and purchasing, which are there to help you. We're starting to see an uptick in concerns about appraising property, where people have to, appraisals of property, where they have to whitewash their home to get a good price for their house. Yeah. This is the #1 thing that we see, both probably in employment, definitely in housing, but also employment is pretty high, with reasonable accommodations and modifications for a disability. So if you need to ask for some kind of change to a policy or a practice so that you can do your job, so that you can access a public service, or so that you can live in your home and enjoy the property the same way anybody without a disability would, that's an accommodation. There are lots of different examples. Assistance animals are probably one of the highest things that we see now because lots of people have support animals. I swear by them, to be honest with you, but there are lots of different things.
Emotional support animals being on this commission.
Lots of stuff with the emotional support animals.
About support animals, the question I have is, it's one thing to go on the internet and get a certificate, and it's another thing to actually get a real certificate. It would be nice if we have a mechanism of enforcing legitimate assistance centers.
Yes.
No, I mean, because someone going in, they'll print something off and say, that's an issue.
Yes, please. Yes, this is.
So this is like my faves, right? Other than youth outreach. So probably one of the very few good things to come out of 2020 was the Department of Justice and HUD came out with assistance guidelines. So 2 things. If you're a landlord and you're looking at these certifications, there is no database. There's also a difference between service animals and emotional support animals. Service animals are specially trained, and they are animals of only one of 2 species: puppers, so dogs, and miniature horses. Yes, miniature horses live longer and provide much of the same function. That's why they make the cut. All right, any other animal trained...
Horses aren't allowed in the apartments, right?
You have to grant it, provided, again, it is reasonable under the circumstances. So if I got a townhouse with a side lot, I'm getting that pony in. So yay for me, right? But that aside, there's also support animals. So support animals may or may not be trained. May or may not be of the exotic variety. One of the great examples is a Capuchin monkey that is helping someone who is paralyzed from the neck down help open bottles, and not just like mixed drinks like cocktails, like get a bottle of water, right? So but there's no database for them. So many times what we see, those online providers like Come and Register Your Animal, they're preying on people with disabilities who already have very limited access to medical care, because for better, worse, or indifferent, our medical care and health insurance benefits is generally tied to your ability to work. So if you have a disability, there is very often some interruption in your ability to work and get that adequate health care to otherwise register. That's why we look for reliable third-party verification. So that might be a doctor, if we're lucky enough to have access to one. Could be clinics, could be pastoral council. My favorite example was there was a military veteran, and all of his platoon buddies wrote letters to the landlord. They're like, yeah, we've seen him without the dog, and he's in bad shape, but when he has the dog, he's able to maintain a normal circadian rhythm, that sort of thing. So looking at reliable third parties is important, and there is specific guidance that's on that, and I will always pump that the commission is here to give that kind of assistance and advisory opinions where needed.
But it would be nice if we had a database. So if someone comes to me, I'm a landlord, and they say they get something from the internet, I said, well, why don't we go through a process of getting it done locally?
That exists.
Okay.
Under the guidance, and we'll be
Yeah.
happy to train you on it. Anyone that asks, we offer that for free.
Yeah, we do regular fair housing for landlord trainings. Like I said, we just did one a few weeks ago that was fairly well attended. We're planning our next one for sometime in July to celebrate our 70th anniversary as a commission. But anyone is welcome to show up to those, whether or not you've been called to the table or not. But we do use them to train people who have settlements with us. So you might
You don't have to wait for a settlement to get the training.
Exactly. We want people to know. We want people to know this stuff and not have to worry about the complaints that come. So the assistance animal, she already covered it. Doesn't matter what it's called. It doesn't matter how a person makes the request. It has to be an interactive process. If you can't make the decision, you got to get it to somebody who can make the decision. The documentation has to show the nexus, the connection, and a prescription's just not enough. I mentioned earlier about familial status. I'll touch on this one because this is one of the top protected classes that we see in the city. It is the existence of children under the age of 18 in the property, or someone who is pregnant and about to have a child. So you cannot discriminate against somebody because, oh, it's a one-bedroom apartment, you are about to have a second child, and that's not allowed. Please don't do that. In the city of Pittsburgh, the regulation we go with is the Allegheny County occupancy standards, which is based on square footage for sleeping space. And this has actually been updated more recently to say that anyone who is age 12 or younger does not count towards that sleeping space in square footage. So know your property, know how much square footage there is, and know when to not deny people just based on the number of bedrooms. We have this come up with students as well. The status as a survivor of domestic violence I covered a bit already. We had those examples. And what can you do? So you as a citizen of Pittsburgh, you as a person who was wonderful enough to come here or to join virtually and listen to my spiel and to see all my wonderful commissioners, if you see something, say something. Again, if we don't know it's happening, we can't do anything about it. We can't address it. We can't call somebody and say, hey, what's going on? We can't offer them training. We can't do anything. So please tell us. You don't have to file a formal complaint. You can just call and give us a tip, whatever you want to do. Leave me a voicemail and be like, hey, Rachel told me to leave this message. It's fine. Give people our contact information. If you can't use this information, somebody in your life can. Word of mouth is the best referral source for our commission. People telling other people that we exist and that this process is something that works. And spreading the word, again, people, I already skipped myself. The agency exists. Let's tell people that it's here as a resource. This is our contact information. It is on the documentation that I provided you as well. Anybody who is joined virtually, I'll catch up with you and send you all the handouts and a copy of the presentation. But we have a number of ways that you can contact us. Our phone number has not changed. I don't even know when that phone number went into effect, but it's been there forever. And we have staff in the office. We're hybrid, but we do have staff in the office to cover the phones all day. Monday through Friday. So we've got people there. That pittsburghpa.gov/CHR is our main website. That has a ton of infographics well beyond what I handed out to you today. We cover all the things for medical marijuana patients. We cover gender identity and expression and sexual orientation. We cover all the domestic violence for both employment and housing. It's all there. And if you need something translated, we can get that for you as well.
Oh, go ahead.
It's for the not to amplify, it's for the people that are on hybrid.
Okay, quick question. Is there another commission for the city of Pittsburgh?
There's lots of commissions.
No, I mean,
Are you thinking of the Office of Equal Protection?
no, because I have been to meetings in East Liberty given by, the Pittsburgh Human Relations, and is that you guys?
That might be the state. That sounds
No, it wasn't state. It was,
We did one in East Liberty.
We did do one.
We go out and we do those.
yeah, but that was you guys.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, okay.
See, we do get out, and we do have community meetings. We try to have at least a couple community-based commission meetings a year so that you would see like the regular business like we had today, even though I apologize for the tech issues. And then we do something like this, where we want to present information, but we also want to hear from you all to hear what you're experiencing. So if there's something we can do about it, or a question that we can answer for you, then we're here. So yeah, we've definitely been at Kingsley before multiple times. The AFFH task force was there. I always have that location in the back of my head for a community spot.
I do have a question for you, and this is a general question.
Yes.
Let's say I'm an individual who is experiencing some sort of discrimination. Mm-hmm. How would you, as this group, recommend that I document my experience?
You want to take that, investigator? All right.
I'm looking at you, Rita.
I am a fan of the recap email and texting. So even if it's not in writing, so let's say it's employment, right? And then I'll break it down for housing too. Housing's a little easier. But if it's employment and let's say you need an accommodation, only because that's our biggest filer, you report to HR. And just remember that HR is a company's first line of defense. They're not necessarily there to advocate for any given employee. So if you are asking for an accommodation, email HR, say, I spoke to my manager, this is what happened. Keep it to facts. This is the accommodation I need. Let me know what the next steps are. Affirmatively put the ball in their court. That's one. If it's a harassment situation where you've been maybe called a slur at work, or names or actions, you need to report it. An employer can defend themselves if they are unaware of an issue. So you definitely need to report it to the employer before you come to us. Not that we can't help, but a respondent has an affirmative defense of, I didn't know. This may or may not have happened, but no one told me about it, and I had no reason to know. Give them a reason to know. For housing, we see a lot more in writing. So if you're going on an apartment tour, bring a friend. Document, write down dates. Again, if there's been a meeting in person, send that recap email, send that recap text. All of those documents do help keep it organized, keep it in a timeline. Have the receipts. But that would be my advice on how to document, but keep it respectful, stick to facts, and then you can pass that on to an investigator should you need to do it. Hopefully you won't.
And Rita, I would just say, from the other standpoint, people who are potential complaints against them, respondents, the better your personnel manual is, the better your HR policies, the better your rental policies, the more clear it is, and the more it's in line with the things that we've talked about today, the less likely it is that a case will go forward against you. I mean,
the commission offers free policy review.
So that's exactly one of those things that we would want people to, like employers and landlords, to take advantage of, because if you're very clear in your statements, I mean, you can't discriminate in your policies, but at the same time, having that clearly in compliance review, we have seen so many times where if they had just had a policy written in their human resources manual where it was clearly stated and the person needed to, acknowledge and comply by it, that's a very different story than if you just didn't have anything and you can't produce anything that says this was part of our policy. If you're verbally telling our investigators, well, that's just our policy, we don't have it written down anywhere, well, it's not your policy then. So.
Okay, so I have a hypothetical. If you are, let's say you're a landlord, right? Mm-hmm. And one of your tenants is harassing a neighbor. Mm-hmm. Does that neighbor have, should that neighbor, before coming to you guys, and I don't know if they even can, does that neighbor then approach the landlord and say, you have a tenant who is doing A, B, C, and D and making sexual slurs to me, blah, 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 blah.
Is it a mutual landlord?
No.
That's hard.
Do they live in the city of Pittsburgh? That's the first question we're going to ask.
So if it's mutual landlord and it's two neighbors in a unit, then we're talking about, hey, the landlord has to stop the discrimination there, and the landlord owes that duty. If we are talking about neighbor-on-neighbor disputes, if the landlord has some influence, right, ideally, the landlord can affirmatively do something to say, hey, neighbor, but their responsibility is less. And we have seen some neighbor-on-neighbor disputes, but it has to be more than just a private dispute for the commission to intervene.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're an employer or a housing provider and someone on your staff or, one of your tenants is complaining about another tenant, you've got to respond. You have to do something, because if you know about it and you do nothing, that's when they can come to us and be like, hey, they knew this was happening and they did nothing. Yeah, so.
Any other questions?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I actually have a question about student housing. I'm a grad student. All my friends are grad students. So when it comes to emotional support animals specifically, is it up to the landlord's discretion on if the provided documentation is enough for them to have the support animal?
They will make it up to their discretion. Whether that's valid or not is up for debate. We can look at that. That is a lot of times what we'll see for assistance animal complaints or for support animal is, okay, well, you have two assistance animal, you have two support animals, and you really should only need one, but they have documentation to show, okay, that two are necessary. One is supportive of something and the other is supportive of something else. They have to get provider information that shows the connection between whatever that person's disability is and how it's going to help them exist in that housing space. Okay. I think Rita mentioned it earlier that we've now successfully been able to change accommodation policies for two of the local universities for their housing because they were having issues with support animals, where they would require things.
Diagnosis.
Yeah, they would ask for a diagnosis.
Yeah.
They can't ask for a diagnosis. They get symptoms and they get solutions, and that's what they get. Yeah. You don't have to give them a diagnosis. They definitely don't get medical records, but yeah, they will try to find a way out of anything with the support animals in particular.
Yeah, that's been my experience. So I was wondering.
Are we? Another question.
So if there is some discrimination and it's reported to the manager and the manager does not address it, what are the consequences?
Well, that's when people can come to us and let us know, because then the housing provider needs to be educated on why it is that they are responsible for that. As a business owner, you are responsible for taking care of the people that are coming to you, and you can't just ignore if there are complaints, even if it's between people. Like, you can't just say, oh, you guys need to work it out amongst yourselves. If something truly discriminatory is going on, like, it is by law a requirement that they act. And if they don't, then that's when they can come to us and we can enforce the law. So in that kind of a situation, we'd say, like, okay, maybe we'll do a settlement, and we'll obligate the person to take a 4-hour fair housing training, and maybe we'll actually have them add a policy to their book about how to respond to inter-tenant disputes, so that they know what to do moving forward. They won't have this problem again, hopefully, and then for the person who was harmed, it would be whatever they felt would make them whole in the situation, which varies. Sometimes it's a commemorative bench, sometimes it's a plaque on the wall, sometimes it's $500,000, which we get as a demand a lot, but is not really feasible for our organization. But yeah, it really does vary. A lot of people, I should mention that we offer mediation throughout the entire course of our process. So investigation, public hearing, we offer mediation services. Most of our staff are trained mediators, and we also have pro bono mediators that are local, like attorneys, who want to have that mediation experience, and they work with us and they get trained by us to mediate discrimination issues. And so our goal is really just to remedy the discrimination. We want to be able to sit down and have folks move forward without having to do a full investigation, without having to go through a full public hearing. We don't enjoy taking public hearings all the way to the end. It's very grueling for everybody involved, and it doesn't have to be that way. We can find a way to sit down with each other and solve this problem. And sometimes you can even get an apology out of it, which is what people really want. They just want to be heard, and they maybe need an apology from someone.
And just to reiterate, if a person has experienced discrimination, the complaint should be made by that person, but if the commission finds out about something that's an ongoing situation, the commission can institute a complaint on its own. Not because of an individual, but because the commission feels that something is so outrageous or so much against the city codes that it itself will be the complainant. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, we specifically have a provision that if a case goes probable cause, right, we found with investigation there's enough evidence to say that it was likely discrimination occurred. We have probable cause, and maybe the complainant will decide to withdraw afterward because they don't want to take it forward. They're exhausted. They just want to be done with the process, or maybe they were intimidated out of the process, because it can be very inequitable when you have a table full of attorneys for a housing provider or an employer, and you are an individual who came pro se but without an attorney to do these things. So if we get a withdrawal after we have a probable cause finding, we take it back to compliance review and make sure that they know, because if at that point they think that we should do a commission initiated on whatever that issue was, we can, so that we can take it forward if that person didn't feel comfortable moving forward with the process. Yes.
I am a landlord, and if a tenant says they're having trouble with another tenant, I don't see what I can do. I mean, to be honest, I would say call the police. Okay, but say it's a guy towards a female, and the female is this tall, and the guy is this tall. I'm going to stop him from doing what? So, I mean, it's easy to put it on the landlord, and I'm not going to give it back to her because she will come up with a solution. But I normally, I mean, but yeah. I would say to call the police and see what happens after that.
If it's an emergency and there's physical harm at risk, that's absolutely a 911 call. Very often we're the second phone call. But if you have intertenants, you owe a duty of quiet and enjoyment to both of them.
Yes.
However, if there is one that is a definitively bad actor, some things that can happen are switch units if possible, lease violations for the tenant that is harassing, eventually eviction if they don't get the hint.
That would take 60 to 90 days.
Again, you're doing your part. Doing nothing, you have no defense other than you did nothing. You knew and did nothing. The indifference of good men is unacceptable if we're going to further and enforce the law that we have on the books. So even if it takes time, you as a respondent can demonstrate, look, these are the actions I have taken and have exhausted. Otherwise, you can let the victim out of their lease. Without penalty or without fee.
Yes, and
yeah.
in this scenario too, when that other person who's on the receiving end of the discrimination or harassment, then you could provide witness statement that would further support their cause in their investigation. So, by taking that action, it would be still supporting them. So. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it can be.
Rachel, are we near adjournment?
All right. We are near adjournment. If anyone has any other questions, if you think of something after you leave today, please reach out to me. The commission's email is on there. That human.relations email goes to me. It goes to our administrative assistant. It goes to our fiscal coordinator. So we've got it. We will hear from you, and you will hear from us. Thank you all for being here.
My question is the easiest one of the night. The people either online or in the room have a right to know who we are. And I would love to know the people in the room. So I'm a commissioner. My name is Rabbi James Gibson. I'm the retired rabbi of Temple Sinai in Squirrel Hill.
Hi, I'm Liddy Barlow. I'm a commissioner, although I'm in my final twilight of my commission term.
That's what you think. That's what you think, Liddy.
I don't know, this was so inspiring. I was like, maybe I should stay. Anyway, my day job is as executive minister of Christian Associates of Southwest PA.
Richard Morris. I was a former commissioner, and I've come back to the commission to volunteer. I just retired from the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh.
Hi, I'm Tiara Collins. I wear 27 hats, but in my free time, I wear the hat for the Commission of Human Relations. I'm a very well-known advocate in the city of Pittsburgh for human rights, and I like doing this. So thanks for having me.
I'm Genevieve Russell, and also Tiara is our chair. I'm Genevieve Russell. I'm the first vice chair, and I'm just getting comfortable saying I'm an activist, just through my personal life and through just my journey here. I like to advocate on behalf of people with disabilities, and I also try to protect people's civil rights through voting rights.
Hi, I'm Isabel Reese-Flint, and I'm a student at the University of Pittsburgh. I'm currently getting my doctorate of audiology.
And I don't think I actually said this, but I'm Rachel Shepard. I'm the executive director of the Pittsburgh Commission on Human Relations.
Hi, I'm Ricky Demarest. I live on the north side.
Wonderful.
Oh yes, I'm also a North Sider.
You don't want to introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. My name's, no, nobody wants to know that now. I'm just kidding. My name is Christopher Solt. I'm the Deputy Director for the Commission on Human Relations.
I'm Rita Porterfield. I'm one of the senior investigators on staff. I'm also a trained mediator. But I like the training way more, if that makes it makes it any better.
My name is Preston Moore. I'm the past president of the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors and the Realtor Association Metropolitan Pittsburgh. I would say that we would like to work more with you guys. The thing that's depressing is it gives the impression that government-type entities do not want to work with realtors, and I think we can help.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's
Really, really.
Realtors are a huge part of this justice. Realtors are a huge part of housing justice.
Working with you you got it?
Oh, I'm just saying, in general, you have a key seat at the plate.
I'm going to one of your monthly things next month.
Yeah, Chris will be at one of the Realtors Association meetings in April, yeah. So we do try to get out and do these for like the independent agencies. We've worked with RAMP in the past because David Dean used to participate in the AFFH task force. He would help us do some trainings on the housing, like the ownership piece of housing. We also go out and do home ownership workshops so that we try to get out under people's noses for when they're in the process of buying a home. You know, we're trying to be everywhere. So if you think of somewhere that we should be or that would benefit from any of the information in this presentation, please let us know, because I'm happy to reach out to them.
You know, you guys should become an affiliate of RAMP.
How would one do that?
Okay, well,
We can discuss this. I recognized your name.
I think we can discuss this after the adjournment.
Indeed.
that would possibly work.
All right, Madam Chair.
Okay, we're going to adjourn this meeting. Would anybody like to motion to adjourn the
I
meeting?
move we adjourn.
I'll second.
That is all at one time.
All in favor?
Meeting adjourned.